All right, so this next week we got some good games, some good matchups, some games that are definitely going to impact the college football playoff in the future. So let's talk about Florida State, Boston College. This one is not going to affect it at all, but I'll take Florida State on the road against Boston College. Boston College has looked good the last 2 weeks with wins over Louisville and Virginia. Team's definitely on the ups, but I'll take Florida State on the road. They struggled this year, but I think they can beat a Boston College team. I think their defense can shut down their running game that's been really good the last 2 weeks. Arkansas, Ole Miss, this is a tough one. This is basically a pick 'em. Ole Miss at home, I usually would have picked Ole Miss, but with Shea Patterson out, I'll take Arkansas to definitely win the game on the road. Oklahoma State and West Virginia. Now, I've been very impressed with West Virginia throughout this year, and I will say I haven't been as impressed I have been impressed with Oklahoma State. Like, I expected a lot more out of them, though. The way they played against Texas last week, that was ugly. The way that they can't hit little field goals, short field goals. They put a lot of pressure on themselves, and I think this is a week that they really hurt themselves. I'm taking West Virginia at home. I think they'll win at home. I think Greer just picks that defense apart. I don't know why. I think West Virginia is going to really handle them. Texas, Baylor, this could be a trap game for Texas. Baylor potentially could get their first win, but I'm not really buying it. I'll take Texas on the road. Be a good little matchup between Charlie Brewer versus Sam Ellington or Ellinger. Those two guys played against each other at Westlake and Lake Travis, the big rivalry down in Austin. Stanford, Oregon State play on Thursday. I wanted to say that one for sure, Stanford. And then as I go down, Wisconsin, for sure they're playing Illinois. I got Wisconsin. Michigan, Rutgers, I'll take Michigan. North Carolina, Miami, for sure Miami. Louisville, Wake Forest, I'll take Louisville. Wake Forest's defense played really good against Louisville last year, when Louisville was really killing people. So I could see where Wake Forest could potentially win this game, but I'll take Louisville. Virginia, Pitt, I'll take Pitt. I think Pitt's been challenged a little bit more through the ACC at this point. I wasn't impressed with Virginia's loss last week to Boston College, how it went down. Cal, Colorado, both these teams are 4-4 going into it. Cal overachieving, Colorado underachieving. I will take Colorado to win the game at home. Kansas State, Kansas, for sure Kansas State's going to win. Georgia, Florida, this is usually a pretty big game. I think Florida will play them close, but I think this is another win for Georgia as they continue to run through the SEC East. TCU, Iowa State. Iowa State jumped into the top 25 this week. They're at 25. They're playing number 4, TCU. A tough game. TCU is going to go on the road. I think TCU wins the game. Tough game. TCU wins. NC State, Notre Dame. This is a real good game last year. It was a monsoon. Both the teams weren't very good last year, but it was a good game between both of them. It was the most rain I'd seen in a game. The most I've seen quarterbacks be affected by throwing the ball with the wind and the rain. I'll take Notre Dame at home. Notre Dame looked really good last week. I think NC State definitely plays Notre Dame better than USC played them. I don't think I don't think NC State's gonna turn the ball over like that. I don't think Notre Dame will be as hot as they were last week. It'll be a good game, but I'll take Notre Dame. Washington, UCLA. I'll take Washington to slaughter UCLA. I think UCLA's defense is terrible, and I think Washington really wants to jump on an opponent after that loss 2 weeks ago. Michigan State, Northwestern. I think Northwestern is going to play them good. It's going to be a close game. That's how the Big Ten goes. I'll take Michigan State, though. Indiana, Maryland. I'm taking Indiana. Indiana has four losses just like Maryland, but they've played a lot better against the Big Ten teams. It is on the road, but I'll still take Indiana. Big game, biggest game of the day is going to be Penn State, Ohio State. And this is a game that's basically probably the game that I've looked at as being the biggest deal for the playoff for the entire year. It didn't matter if Penn State, or it didn't matter if Ohio State lost to Oklahoma or if they beat Oklahoma. This game is the biggest game of the year for the Big Ten, and the reason that is because just because of like last year. You think about last year. This game completely threw a wrench in the playoff for the Big Ten last year when Penn State, who wasn't as good as Ohio State, was able to beat Ohio State, and they were at home. And I think, just the way things go and the storylines, how things go, I'm really feeling like Ohio State is going to win this game. They're at home. Penn State's undefeated. Penn State is in a position where if they're in the same position that Ohio State was last year. If you can win this game, if you can then continue to win games, you are going to be in the playoff. You control your own destiny. Penn State didn't control their own destiny last year. Ohio State doesn't control their own destiny this year. This is the win Ohio State gets to get them back in the top 4, knocks Penn State back, knocks Penn State completely out of the conversation, which Penn State's been in the conversation all year. It completely knocks them out, puts Ohio State in, and then Ohio State, even though they got the one loss to Oklahoma and it hurts, I think still they go into that Big Ten championship game, and I think they can beat Wisconsin. So that's how I feel. I feel like this is a huge, huge game. This game is definitely going to be the representative of the Big Ten, whatever side they're on, to face Wisconsin in that championship game, and I'm going to go with Ohio State. Ohio State got the loss early in the year, and I think they won it. This game was the one that they lost last year. I definitely think they're going to want this game. I think Urban Meyer definitely gets their team prepared, coming off a bye week. Not to forget that 2 weeks for Ohio State to prepare, one for Penn State. Penn State had Michigan last week. They definitely passed with flying colors, but all of their attention was on Michigan last week. Houston, South Florida. I'll take South Florida. Houston has been not as good as they were projected at the first of the year. Lost to Memphis in a game they probably should have won. They were winning most of the game. I'll take South Florida. Vanderbilt, South Carolina. I don't like Vanderbilt at all. South Carolina at home. I'll take them. Utah on the road against Oregon. Utah's really struggled the last couple of weeks, and Oregon has too. Both of these teams are struggling. I'll take Utah on the road. Minnesota, Iowa. I'm taking Iowa. I just like Iowa a little bit better than I like Minnesota. Close game. Mississippi State, Texas A&M. I'm kind of on the fence with this one. I wanted to say Mississippi State at first, but when I saw Texas A&M at home, that home crowd is just too much to bet against. Those obnoxious fucks. I'm going A&M. Virginia Tech, Duke. I'll take Virginia Tech. Duke has been unimpressive as of lately. They've been losing to teams that I thought that they might be able to beat. I'll take Virginia Tech to slaughter them. Kentucky, Tennessee. It's a tough game to pick. Easy just to say Tennessee after all the losses they've got. This is a good one for them to win, but I'm going out on a limb and I'm saying Kentucky at home, bouncing back after a big loss to Mississippi State last week. Nebraska, Purdue. This is a tough one just because, Nebraska and Purdue are two teams. Nebraska a little bit underachieving, Purdue overachieving a bit. Purdue at home. I'll take Nebraska. They lost last week to Rutgers. That wasn't a good win or a good game, I should say, for Purdue. Texas Tech, Oklahoma. I think Texas Tech plays them good, but Iowa State really exposed Texas Tech last week. Just don't let them get past you. Keep everything in front of you. Let them have all their little throws that they want. But don't let them get big chunk plays, and that's how you beat Tech. I think Oklahoma's going to watch that film from last week, see what Iowa State did, do a little bit of the same, and I think Cliff Kingsbury offense may be dead with the way Iowa State beat it. They're so one-dimensional. He went to running the ball. They can't run the ball. In that game, Kingsbury definitely got out-coached. He gets out-coached most weeks, but this was a game he really got out-coached, and I didn't really think he'd get out-coached in it. Talk about Georgia Tech, Clemson. Georgia Tech's going to give them hell, but, Clemson's got 2 weeks to prepare for Georgia Tech. I think Clemson definitely wins. They've already got that loss. They're ready for some win. They're ready for some wins. I think Clemson definitely beats them by a good amount. Washington State, Arizona. I've got Arizona in my top 25 power poll. Washington State, they won last week against Colorado. They won 28-0. It was an easy win for them. They were at home. They're on the road this week. Let's see if they can shut down Khalil Tate. Cal did a pretty good job in the second half of figuring out Tate. He only had 14 yards in the second half. We'll see if Washington State continues to do the same. We'll see if Arizona starts to use Tate as a decoy now. That's how in the second half, how they won that game. He was more of the decoy. The offense still worked, even though it wasn't him doing it. So we'll see. I'm taking Arizona, though, at home. I don't like Washington State on the road. USC, Arizona State. Arizona State's going to be at home. It's going to be a tough place to play. Defense has really figured it out for Arizona State. I see Darnold having turnovers. I see it being a tough game for USC, but I see USC coming out on top. So that's what I think for next week. Talking about last week a little bit, just some more like the bigger points of last week. Memphis came back and beat Houston. Real good game on Thursday. Probably got overshadowed because of the Raider-Chiefs game, but Memphis was losing this whole game. I think they didn't have any points at half. They didn't have any points at half. They scored 21 in the third, 21 in the fourth, and they were able to beat Houston. Really says a lot about the Memphis offense, the Memphis team. I like Memphis a lot. I went ahead and put them in my top 25 with that resilient win this week. Iowa State, Texas Tech, I talked about that a little bit. Just that was more of the defense. Oklahoma State, Texas. Oklahoma State could have won the game late, 13-10, but they couldn't make an easy field goal, had to take it to overtime. Game should have never even been this close. Texas' offense is terrible, but Texas' defense is really good. Oklahoma State just couldn't do enough, and then, Ellinger threw a stupid pick at the end of the game. He didn't throw it all the way out of the end zone. He threw it to the back of the end zone and lost them the game. So there you go, young guy, still trying to figure it out. Northwestern, Iowa, pretty good game, pretty good defensive game. Northwestern was able to come out on top. Wisconsin slaughtered Maryland, Louisville, and Florida State. Pretty good game right here. Louisville was able to come out on top late. They were up 28-14. Then Florida State scored 2 touchdowns. Louisville was able to kick a field goal at the end. Florida State had an opportunity to win the game late, and they had a turnover in Louisville's territory. So tough for Florida State. Tough loss, 0-3 at home this year. Florida State's definitely the biggest surprise, I'd say. But, obviously the surprise is because of DeAndre Francois. Now, I don't know how good they would be even if they did have Francois. Is the big deal, I think. Pitt was able to beat Duke. A good comeback behind win for Pitt. Boston College slaughtered Virginia, like I said earlier. Alabama slaughtered Tennessee. Arizona State played really good against Utah. Really just never let them got going. And Arizona State was able to win that. Michigan State trailed basically the whole game against Indiana. Offense looked pretty bad, like I knew it was. But defense, offense got going late, scored 2 touchdowns late, and was able to win the game. Minnesota handled Illinois 24-17. Good game between Syracuse and Miami. I thought Syracuse would play them close. And Miami looks very banged up. But they need a bye week, I'd say. But, Miami's got some big games coming up they need to prepare for. Virginia Tech, and they also have Notre Dame, I think it is, coming up in the next couple weeks. So they need to get ready for those. But they've been resilient. They've been good. It's a good win. This game was a lot more about how Syracuse played bad. Dungy had 2 picks in the first half. They really couldn't get going. They couldn't score. They couldn't get into the end zone in the second half. Kept kicking field goals. Good win by Miami, though. UCF and Navy, real good game here. UCF surprisingly didn't play that well throughout the game. They started hot, they looked good, but then they had some turnovers or they were turning the ball over. Navy sits on the ball a good amount, but then Zach Ibe got hurt in the second half, and that kind of just killed Navy's confidence and their push to get that done. UCF with a big win, and they continue to win. They also beat Memphis early in the year, like 40-13, so that was a good win for them. Mississippi State slaughtered Kentucky 45-7. UCLA beat Oregon 31-14. Big game for Josh Rosen. Good game for UCLA to get back on track. Only gave up 14 points. SMU was able to handle Cincinnati on the road, won in overtime 31-24. A real good game between Oklahoma and Kansas State. Kansas State really jumped out on top, went up 21-7. The Delton was playing very good for Kansas State to start the game. Everything was rolling. Nothing was going for Oklahoma. But the second half, Oklahoma got it going. I think this is a big win for Oklahoma. It was one of those where it wasn't they were leading the whole game, but they showed they had heart where they came back. Kansas State didn't ever quit. They went up 28. It was 28-21. You thought, all right, now they're going to get 2 more touchdowns and they're going to turn this into a blowout. Well, Kansas State scored again, and then Oklahoma scored, and then Kansas State scored again. It was 35-35. They really made Oklahoma go and get this win, so good win for Oklahoma. It doesn't look that great because it was Kansas State, a team that TCU absolutely slaughtered last week at home, or at Kansas State's home, so it doesn't look good committee-wise and, playoff-wise. But for Oklahoma, to continue going forward, the only way they're getting into the playoff is if they win out, so good win for them. And, you go down the list, LSU slaughtered Ole Miss. Darius Geis finally looks right. He looked like he got healthy. He had over 200 yards rushing. Auburn slaughtered Arkansas. Kind of figured that would happen. USC Notre Dame, real surprise here with the Notre Dame USC game. A lot of turnovers killed them, but Notre Dame just looked awesome as a unit, all phases, defense, offense, special teams, all of it looked good. In a game where you could have fucked around and you could have only scored like 14 points in the first half and been fine, and you would have had like a 7 to 10 point lead, and you would feel good about it because you weren't supposed to be up by that anyways. They went up 28-0. Real early, and every time USC started to score, they just jumped on their throats. Great game by Notre Dame. They jump up my power poll. I've got them at 4 now. I got them at 4 because their only losses to Georgia. Georgia's looked really good this year. The game between Notre Dame and Georgia was a really good game, real good defensive game. So I feel like they're on the same level as Georgia. They were 13th on my list. Now they have bounced right back up, and they are in my top 4. I've moved Wisconsin. I've moved TCU down to give a spot to Notre Dame. I like what I saw out of them on that game. Now Michigan Notre Dame or Michigan Penn State. This is a game I knew Penn State would win. Now I thought it would be a little bit closer because Michigan, because scores in the Big Ten are always close even if the game isn't close. But Penn State slaughtered them. The funny thing is O'Korn actually didn't play half bad. O'Korn was playing better in this game than he has, but it was just Penn State jumping on him early, and then it was 14-13 at half. I thought, damn, this could be a good game going late, but then just more Penn State late. Georgia Tech struggled at first with Wake Forest. Wake Forest got on a run, and they were up, they were winning, and then Georgia Tech got like 2 touchdowns late. Win the game. TCU 43-0 on Kansas. West Virginia jumped on Baylor. Seals had 3 more touchdowns. He's got 15 receiving touchdowns on the year. Baylor made a resilient comeback at the end, and they just missed a two-point conversion. It's just like karma keeps winning for Baylor against Baylor. West Virginia won the game. Arizona, Cal, this was a really good game. Like I talked about earlier, Cal did a good job of shutting down Tate in the second half. But Arizona just was just enough. Cal went for 2 in overtime. This was just a back and forth game. Every time, Arizona went up 21-7, but after that point, every time Arizona scored, Cal would score, or vice versa. Going into that overtime, it was 31-31, and then Arizona had 2 possessions in a row. After that the first overtime, they got 2 possessions in a row because they got the ball second, and then Cal decided they were going to go for 2 to try to win the game, and they didn't get it. Tough game for them. Boise State, Wyoming. Boise State was at home. Boise State was able to get the win. That's a big game in the Mountain West. For the championship game later on. Colorado State's another team in that side of it. Now on the other side of the Mountain West, Fresno State is a team we got to start talking about now. San Diego State was an undefeated team. 2 weeks ago they lost they lost to Boise State last week. They got slaughtered by them. And then this week they got slaughtered by Fresno State. Now Fresno State's kind of been like really under the radar. They got McMariana. He's a guy that transferred from Oregon State. He was the starter for them last year, 2 years ago. But what was gotten away from us with this whole Fresno State thing is the fact that they played Alabama and they played Washington first 2 out of the first 3 weeks of the season, and they lost 41-10 to Alabama, and they lost 48-16 to Washington. So they lost these games pretty good, but they really weren't a bad team. And then they've been killing all the teams that they've been playing lately, and they killed San Diego State. This is a team you got to watch. They're not going to do shit. They already lost 2 games, not like BCS, like postseason type shit or whatever. But this is a team that's definitely coming up. As you see a San Diego State team that has came up to the last couple of years, and they're at the point where they're at now. Let's talk about Fresno State. Let's start to look at Fresno State. They look like they have a lot of winnable games for the rest of the year, and then they got Wyoming and Boise State at the end of the year. 2 teams they could potentially play in the Mountain West Conference Championship game. So just some stuff to look at there. Kind of miscellaneous, but. And then, other than that, Washington State and Colorado played. Washington State just shut them down. They needed a big win after their loss to Cal last week. Good big win for Washington State. they didn't really have to do a whole lot. It was more about how Colorado just couldn't get it going. They just couldn't get anything going. Lindsey still almost had 100 yards rushing, though. But it was, I mean, Washington State handled it.